What happens when comedians become more trusted than journalists? When late-night punchlines start carrying more weight than presidential press conferences? When the guy screaming about Epstein and Froyo is more believable than Anderson Cooper? Well, according to CNN, that's already happening. And apparently, it's Tim Dillon's world now. Welcome to Viberage, where the bold meet the curious. Today we ask, is Tim Dillon the real news now? And if so, what the hell does that say about the state of media, trust, and truth itself? Let's unpack this, because what's happening here isn't just funny, it's seismic. Let's start with a headline CNN dropped like a bombshell. A primetime piece asking, is Tim Dillon influencing political discourse more than traditional media? Wait, rewind. A guy who built a brand on mocking the elite, roasting Hollywood, joking about being in the CIA, is now being treated like he's part of the new information establishment? That's like saying Joe Rogan should be Surgeon General, or that your Uber driver is now a senator because he has opinions on Bitcoin and booster shots. But let's be fair, CNN isn't totally wrong. Because Tim Dillon's not just another comedian, he's a movement. And whether you love him or hate him, you can't ignore what he represents. Let's zoom out. Tim Dillon, a former mortgage broker turned stand-up savage, now hosts a podcast that pulls in millions of listeners weekly. No teleprompters, no advertisers to appease, no suits, no script, just one guy, a microphone, and total chaos. He says what most people think, but are too afraid to say. He jokes about Nancy Pelosi like she's a Marvel villain. He calls billionaires lizard-brained tech demons with dead eyes and blood money. And he says it all with this strange cocktail of sarcasm, sincerity, and apocalyptic flair. It's not just entertainment, it's catharsis. Now, here's the twist. Traditional media, they're losing their grip. CNN's ratings are down, legacy anchors are stepping down, trust in the media is at record lows. While Tim Dillon gets more views on a rant about Whole Foods than CNN does on breaking news about war. How did we get here? Simple. Legacy media sold authority, but they forgot how to tell the truth. And Tim Dillon? He sells doubt. And in 2025, doubt is more profitable than facts. Let's get real. People are done with filtered news. They're done with the smug neutrality, the corporate tone, the same 5 headlines recycled every 24 hours. You know what Dillon offers? Something raw, something weird, something human. He admits when he's full of shit. He mocks himself before you can. And that, paradoxically, makes him more trustworthy than the entire staff of MSNBC. Here's the part that should make every executive at CNN wet their pants. Tim Dillon doesn't need your approval. He's not chasing Pulitzers. He's not beholden to sponsors or scripts. He doesn't even need to be right. He just needs to feel real. And in a world drowning in scripted outrage and sanitized narratives, real is the rarest drug of all. But now we arrive at the danger zone. Because when people start trusting comedians more than journalists, what happens to truth? What happens when satire starts shaping policy? When people don't just laugh at Tim Dillon, they vote because of him? That's when chaos gets teeth. Because satire was always supposed to punch up, to question power. But what if satire becomes power? What if Dillon, unintentionally, becomes an unelected kingmaker? Now we've got a new kind of influence, with no accountability, no editor, no corrections department, no ethics board, just vibes. Let me drop a harder truth. We're not just watching a media shift. We're watching a credibility apocalypse, the collapse of old gatekeepers, and the rise of digital prophets. People like Tim Dillon aren't just filling a gap. They're replacing the entire roof. He's a mirror to our cultural decay, and we like what we see. Not because it's pretty, but because it's finally honest. Think about it. Would you rather hear a news anchor gently explain a recession, or Dillon scream that the housing market is a Ponzi scheme run by cokehead landlords in Patagonia vests? Exactly. We're not in an information age. We're in an interpretation age. And Dillon? He interprets the madness in a way that hits harder than bullet points ever could. Now, we face the cliffhanger question. What happens when Dillon stops being the court jester and becomes the king? When his jokes are taken as gospel? When satire starts shifting elections, markets, even wars? That's not just influence, that's power. And unchecked power, even when it's funny, is still dangerous. So, is Tim Dillon the real news now? In some ways, yes. He's what the news used to be. Uncomfortable, unfiltered, unapologetic. But that comes with a warning. Because if the public is so hungry for truth that they'll accept it from a comedian, that means the institutions we once trusted are dead, buried under decades of spin, censorship, and corporate compromise. Dillon didn't kill them. He's just dancing on their grave. If that made you uncomfortable, good. That's what we do here. Viberage isn't here to make you feel safe. We're here to make you think. And if this video shook your trust in the media, wait until you see what we uncovered about the Dave Shapiro plane crash. Was it really just a tragic accident, or something far darker? Tap the video on screen now. Subscribe if you're not afraid to question everything, because the age of blind trust is over, and the era of radical curiosity has just begun.